So it's time for me to do my 90,000 mile service on my 2011 Toyota Land Cruiser 200 series. That includes the front and rear differentials and the transfer case. So we're going ahead and we're going to do the front differential first. So what I did was I drove around town for about 10 miles or so, making sure to engage 4 low for about a mile or so just to heat up all the oil. The first thing you're going to do is remove all the skid plates, and then you'll be able to access the differential. Notice I have a differential drop here, so don't be confused by wondering where the heck these parts are on your 200 unless you have a differential drop too. So we're going to scoot down towards we're headed towards the rear of the car here. We'll see the lower drain plug right here. And then up here, you just barely see it, that's the upper fill plug. Both of them will take a 10 millimeter hex extension. And what we're gonna do first is we're gonna loosen and remove this upper plug. And then we will begin removing the lower plug. These things can tend to be tight, so I'm going to use a breaker bar to loosen it. At this time, we can also go ahead and use our 10 millimeter hex key and remove the upper fill bolt at the top of the differential here. Right there, in case you're wondering. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen the lower drain bolt now. I've loosened it beforehand, obviously. And I'm going to slowly back it out. I'm going to be really careful not to lose the O-ring that's on this this drain plug here. Sorry about the lighting, it's pretty bad right now. Also, make sure you have an oil pan underneath you because this is going to start coming out. Okay, we're just about there. Here it comes. All right. There it is. So we're gonna let this drain for a while. Here's our lower drain plug. Let me get it into focus here. I believe it's got a magnetic base on it to catch impurities, so we're going to clean that off with a rag, and then we're going to spray it with some carburetor cleaner to get it nice and clean. Also take note just to see what comes off of it. If you see any metal shavings or anything like that, you may have a big problem. So we're going to go ahead and get this clean while the rest of the oil drains out of the front differential. So here's the lower drain plug. I've got it all cleaned off. There's the magnet. Kept my washer. This is the sludge that came out of it, if you can see. It's pretty thick, but there's no metal shavings or anything, but it was pretty nasty. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this lower drain plug back in. We're going to torque it to 29 foot-pounds with our 10 millimeter hex key. And then we'll go ahead and start filling up with oil. So we're done draining. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up with a rag. And I'm going to go ahead and hand tighten this lower drain hole, or drain bolt. Get the thread started, make sure I don't cross thread them. And again, once I get it tightened down, I'm going to torque this with a 10 millimeter hex key to 29 foot-pounds. All right, I have my click tight torque wrench in here. 1, 2, 3. Right, it's fully torqued. So this is what I'm going to put in there. It's a 75/90 weight, full synthetic Mobil 1. I've got a pump to pump it into the front diff. You're not going to be able to pour it in. You're going to have to get one of these pumps. I got it on Amazon. Also put a piece of vinyl tubing at the end to reach to the bottom of the oil to make sure I get every last drop. We're going to be putting 2.5 quarts of oil. You're going to put in probably about 2 and a quarter pretty quickly. And then on those last, that last little bit to get to 2.5, we're going to go really slow because we don't want to overfill it because we're just going to waste oil. So we're going to go ahead and start filling. We're going to go ahead and put our 2.5 quarts in. So we'll take our filler tube, and I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand, so you just kind of have to take my word for it. You're going to put the filler tube up in this hole here. I like to feed it in a pretty good bit. Maybe I can do it with one hand. Anyway, here's my oil. And I like to just put the cap against something. Remember, this tube is up in that hole. And I like to slowly pump it like that. I can do it with one hand. Because believe it or not, it doesn't look hard, but this is incredibly painful. Because you're working above your head and your arms get really tired really fast. So we're going to put 2 quarts in like this, and then we are going to do the last half quart kind of slower, and we're going to push it until we start to see oil slowly come out of this hole up here, and that's when we'll know we'll have enough oil in there, and then we can go ahead and put the filler socket back in and torque it down to 29 foot-pounds. So I've just hit 2.5, and I noticed this because I'm getting a little bit of oil dripping from the top filler. So I'm going to go ahead and hand tighten the this 10 millimeter plug. I got it tightened, make sure I don't cross thread it. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and torque it to 29 inch up there. Set to 29 pounds. Click. 1, 2, 3. And then remove it, and you are done. So what we're going to do now is just clean up. And we'll check this in a little while after we ran the car a little bit. And we'll make sure that these all look dry, like we don't have any leaks or anything. Making sure our O-rings remained intact. But that's it. Front diff is done. Time to move on to the rear and center.